Hello. I said I would make more videos as we progressed with triple power and processing with Iran. Hasn't been much over the last 3 weeks, a month, because there was a slight technical hitch, so which I'll come to in a minute. But I'll tell you some of the wins that I've had with triple power and what we're doing now. Before I go much further, a bit of a word of warning. If you do these sort of processes, be prepared that your postulates are going to stick a lot more, and not necessarily in a way that you might like. So get your ethics in place, sort yourself out, be honest, and be honest with yourself. The reason I say that, I'll come to in a minute, but a lot of people, as they reach the sort of upper OT levels, will say to you, it's surprising how quick a postulate will come into play, and the consequences of that. A friend of mine who was taught me a great deal was a class 5 auditor, lovely man, became best of friends. He got cancer, and we were talking about this, and a lot of Scientologists said to him, well, just audit it out. And he said, well, it's not that easy. And we were discussing it, and he was saying that, I said, where did he feel that it manifested and that sort of thing? And he said it could have been anything, could have been a casual thought. And it made me recall a time that me and him had not that much before he got the cancer. And we said, we were demoing some stuff out. And he said, I don't want you to demo out a complex cancer. He said, I can only just do that myself now. And it led into a conversation about cancer, and I said, I'd like to know more about cancer. And he said, yes, he would as well. And then I said, don't want to go with it, obviously, and that sort of thing. And he said, I wouldn't mind. We all got to die of something. And as I say, it was probably about 6 months later, he had quite an aggressive strain of cancer, which eventually cost him his life, or his body, I should say. And I'm not saying that one led to the other. I'm just saying that it's surprising that a casual thought may lead to these sort of things. I've certainly noticed that I will think something and it will happen, and in fact, that was one of the reasons I came into Scientology. I was noticing that certain of my postulates weren't sticking. And for me, I realised that the sort of state of clear, if you like, is one where rather than you react or respond to the universe, you go from a state of reacting or responding to the universe the way it is, and the universe starts responding to you. It's that sort of tilt point. And for me, I've always sort of said and maintained that you're not really clear unless your whole universe is acting the way you want it to be. But there's so many sort of confusions and conflicts and that sort of thing. But, that's debatable. Anyway, that's the words of warning over. So we were doing triple power, and through triple power we're doing the first dynamic, self. Now the realizations that I came up with, which was quite interesting, quite spectacular actually. Initially I realized, this was over several sessions, initially I realized the amount that we're made to feel responsible for or guilty for, that we're not actually responsible for. There's so many, you know, there's not enough hours in the day to do your job, and yet somehow you have to get your job done, and you're made to feel guilty of, you know, and you are made to feel guilty, you know, but it's not your fault. And there's lots of those sort of little incidences and you know what I'm saying. Again, tongue-tied there. But there's a lot of situations where you do feel guilty or responsible for things that you really that are not your fault. Further to that, then I sort of realised that we take on board these ideas. We wonder why someone's life is the way it is, or how it manifests that their life was like that, and we think, well, you know, I'm curious. So you've put that thought out that you're curious, and it occurred to me that going through the process, the amount that we put out that we want to experience, and that sometimes we're actually creating a load of nonsense and then trying to look at it from a different point of view, and then trying to look from another angle, each time re-experiencing through a new lifetime a different angle on something. And I thought, if this you know, if we're just playing out, for want of a better word, shit over and over in lifetimes after lifetimes, what's the point, you know? And I had a casual thought, I may as well drop my body. Now, this, as I say, was sort of a casual thought, and we're quite happy to finish the session there, and I'll come back to that in a moment. So going on from there, I then started to see how through the process, how we were, well, some people had really bad things happen to them and were able to leave it. It would still affect them, but they were able to leave it and just get on with their life the best they could. Other people sort of handled it, you know, got through those difficult situations and became or enjoyed life more. And yet some people would return to the same sort of patterns of behaviour. You could call me karmically, if you like. But it was quite interesting because I could see and actually visualise a standing wave of bypass charge where things hadn't been handled. And it was going between a moment of time and a moment of awareness. And they would just go back into that and then reenact something. So like your alcoholics, your drug addicts, people with certain issues, they would always go back to that and trying to understand it. And it was quite fascinating to observe. The people are playing out these things. And so I continued the process, and eventually it led to seeing the self, or myself. And I had a slight confusion on this. I always kind of considered the self to be the self as the body, but that's a bit like seeing the self as the car. You know, you need to maintain your body, but that's kind of different to maintaining yourself. And the self continues for you know, eternity. The actual beingness doesn't diminish, which I hadn't really fully got before. No, it may sound logical, but it hadn't occurred to me. Anyway, I realised how infinitesimally small the self is. If to give you a visualization on this, if one imagines seeing yourself in comparison to the country or your town, then your country, then the planet, one might think you're relatively small in comparison to the world. Then if you zoom out to the sort of solar systems, again you'd be even smaller. zooming out, again smaller. Now imagine putting all of that into a speck of dust and dropping it into a glass of water and zooming out again and again and again. The cells are beyond our ability to see without some form of microscope. But realistically, we're infinitesimally small in comparison to the universe. And as I began to see myself from this, I saw myself, of the self, from the eighth dynamic point of view. And to feel, and this was the real win for me, to feel the level of affection, the level of liking from the eighth dynamic of the self. You know, I was infinitesimally small and yet still significant to the eighth dynamic. And it was like, people talk about the love of God. Well, it really was that. It was just woof, unbelievable feeling. I've had euphoric feelings from you know, doing auditing, having major wins. I've had those euphoric feelings, and they go on for days and days and days. The level of intensity of the affection was quite outstanding. Well, it was phenomenal. Then I went into the static realization, which didn't lessen that, but it did make me sort of, oh, yeah, okay. And that it's just a point of view. And it was, oh, yeah. Which was quite funny, really. But I said we had some technical difficulties. And I said, partway through the process, that I had the thought, well, if we're just playing out all this nonsense, all this shit, I might as well just drop my body. It wasn't really, I wouldn't call it a postulate. I wouldn't call it a... there was no determination, well, I thought, with it. And yet, literally, directly after the session, within half a second of ending the thing, I was having a major heart attack. I was quite extremely poorly, or my body was, and I thought I was going to die, basically. Said my goodbyes to my family because I genuinely thought there was a potential of going. Now you could say, well, you know, you may be predisposed to this sort of thing. But yeah, I went in the ambulance and basically died. Very luckily, I mean, apart from somebody saying, I'm very sorry, but, you know, to announce, but your needle has indicated that you're dead. For all intents and purposes, I was dead. I was exterior to the body. They had to zap me, all these sort of things. Got me going again, or the body going again. Very nasty operation, or I say it was. 3 hours on the operating table. Fortunately, on the mend now. But yeah, it was a technical glitch. Now, whether that was a postulate that stuck inadvertently, whether I was predisposed to it, in the same way, my friend, was it a casual thought? Did he inadvertently create it? You know, the psychiatrists, the people in agreement with the universe would say all these factors, you know, led to this. Those who maybe, where the universe is more in agreement with them, in response to them, might think, well, actually, maybe you did think, drop your body, and maybe I did. And that's the cause. You know, I don't want to worry people You know, I was very fortunate. I was exterior to the body. I said, I don't want to die. And so I came back. Sorry, just got someone come in. 2 seconds.
Sorry, my dad.
My son. So, yeah, that really concludes it. Anyway, you take care. Bye.
Yeah, you too. Yeah.